Okay, so this is a special session and in the same time a yearly conference of the SPA-CEnet, which is the network of spatial research and planning institutes in Central, Eastern and Southeastern Europe, a network that exists for already many years, and it is coordinated by the Leibniz Institute of Ecological, Urban and Regional Development in Dresden, Germany, and by Slovak University of Technology in Bratislava and the Institute Spectra there. So my name is Artem Korzhenevych. I am from the Leibniz Institute for Ecological, Urban and Regional Development in Dresden, and a professor for Urban, Regional and Environmental Economics at the Technical University of Dresden. And on behalf of Slovak University of Technology, in this session we have Matej, Jaššo, and we will have 4 presentations in this session. And I will, before we start, I give a word to Liska Tice for a couple of technical notes.
Welcome also from me. My name is Liska Tice. I'm from Institut Raum und Energie. And I just want to quickly remind you all, for the people watching us right now in MEA, to use the possibility to contribute to this discussion. So you have the possibility on the right-hand side to use the chat. You can ask questions or post comments, and the technical support will integrate these questions into the discussion. There's also the possibility to post content on the wall of ideas. If you want to share it for longer, you can upload files or pictures or links or whatever you think is interesting for the other participants. So then I give the floor back to the moderators and hope we have an interesting session.
Thank you. Great. So just in order not to lose any more time, I will give word to our first speaker, which will be Milan Husar from the Technical University Bratislava. Milan, can you try sharing your slides?
Hello,
Great.
Artem. Hello, everyone. Can you see right now the slides?
Yes, very good.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you again to the moderators, to the SPA-CEnet members, and also to the all participants. My name is Milan Husar. I am working at the Slovak University of Technology in Bratislava, and together with my colleague Michal Hajduk, we would like to present our contribution to the conference, which is dealing with how the student competitions can foster cooperation between the cities and between the nations. We would like to talk about this competition called Munis 2020, which is international student competition between Czech and Slovak students, between our university and 2 universities in Brno. Before we go to the technical part, I would like to introduce the space a little bit. I don't think we need to introduce geographically where cities of Brno or Brünn and Bratislava are positioned. Both cities are relatively similar size. Bratislava has around 500,000 people. Brno has nearly 400,000 people. For both of these regions, cross-border cooperation is not really true priority. This is based on the exact activities and also based on the political programs of the parties and of the future and potential mayors. As for the institutional background, soon after this presentation, we will hear more about this Centrobe, which is initiative operating from 2003, trying to foster cooperation and institutionalization of this cooperation. One of the major issues is so-called politics, but in a way that the cooperation between, cross-border cooperation has never been a true political agenda. And also the differences in politics between these 4 countries of Slovakia, Czech Republic, Austria and Hungary, there are quite still a lot of political and administrative differences. So one of the ways for moving cooperation forward is to avoid politics, so to speak. And that's why university cooperation seems as one of the valid points, because university or academia is by definition apolitical. What are the benefits? First of all, as I said, it's neutral academic environment, and then competition of non-political ideas. So ideas about how to improve the space these countries are covering, and so. Other thing is it builds sort of tradition. This competition on international base has been going on since 2016. It also fosters cooperation between universities and cities. And as for the actual outcomes, first of all, it is implementation of proposed solutions. For city representatives, this is a possibility to meet and talk, which seems rather weak, but in practice, these are perhaps the most important outcomes. We'll talk about the example of integrated transport system, which has been discussed as one of the possible outcomes, and also formal and informal proportion of the project. This will all make sense in 1 minute after we present the competition.
Okay, so hello. Right now, I would like to talk you quickly about the project Munis. So it's an international student competition that started in 2011 in Brno, in Czech Republic, and Bratislava joined the project in 2016. And the aim of the project is basically to connect higher education with practice, also to foster the cooperation between the municipalities and the universities, and also between the universities with each other. So normally there are student teams that consist of 3 to 7 members, and they are multidisciplinary. So there are more fields of study involved, and preferably also international, to foster this cooperation. So the municipalities also with universities, they discuss about the topics that is relevant to the current problems in the city, and choose topic from some kind of urban problem. Most of the time the topic is connected to the smart city concept. So the project is divided into 2 semesters, during which students attend workshops, lectures, and with professionals from the municipality and from academia, and also analyze the problem and then prepare the solutions and proposals. So also the important part of this event, of this competition, is the final event at the end of the year, where there is an event in Bratislava where students from Brno and Bratislava present their proposals to the municipalities, and also the broad public is invited, and there's discussion between the public and the students and also the city representatives. So it's for students, it's a great way to compare their knowledge with the real life situations. So about the framework of the project, the cooperation works tightly with the city. So the municipalities choose the departments whose content is related to the topic, and then the selected departments provide expertise and support for the students. In Bratislava, we have 2 such of departments. First is head of the Office of the Head Architect of Bratislava, and also Department of Strategies and Projects, which supports students with knowledge and also the materials for their projects, and also the administration and management. Also, the municipality of Bratislava supports the project financially under a contract between the city and Slovak University of Technology. And in last year, they provided us with 20,000 euros. And in Slovakia, there are 2 universities and 3 faculties involved. From Slovak University of Technology, it's Department of Management and Spatial Planning, which is our department, also the Faculty of Architecture and Design, and from Academy of Fine Arts and Design in Bratislava, it's Department of Architecture. But there is a continuous effort to involve a greater variety of fields of study and universities in the future. So in Bratislava, the topic was chosen about the revitalization of the public spaces of the university campus, and in Brno they chose transformation of brownfield areas. So each city prepared workshops and lectures to another city that was related to their topic. So, for example, in Brno, they prepared a workshop about the teamwork and leadership. field trips to the brownfields in Brno, and also presentation of public spaces project of Brno municipality. And in Bratislava, we have prepared some workshops like field trips to the university campus, presentation of municipality professionals about environmental policies, lectures about the industrial heritage and trends in its revitalization, and also some trips to field trips to transform brownfields, for example, like creative centers and so on. So the first semester of the work was dedicated to the group work. Students analyzed the selected area together in form of workshops, field work, questionnaires, and so on. And the second semester was dedicated to the independent work in teams and making their proposals and designs. So in Bratislava, we had 6 teams that presented their proposals, from which the jury selected the 3 best projects. And most of the students tried to include this space into the larger network of public spaces in the city, as right now this space of campus of Slovak University Technology is not really a part of the, let's say, living city. So the proposals also emphasized the need of the communication between the university and city and the broad public. So they invited the citizens directly to the campus grounds where university can present itself. And also students proposed functional and aesthetical design for the spaces to suit their current needs and that can be found elsewhere. So for the university and also for the city, this was pretty important feedback directly from the students. And as there are projects that are going, there are still going regarding the campus, which will be there will be many financial budgets involved. So these projects will be like a really helpful basis for the next discussion about this space. But what was maybe more important for let's say municipality was that students based their proposal on knowledge that they gained during the first semester, which was analysis period, which resulted in in-depth insight of the selected area. We had this analysis divided into 5 thematic categories, like analysis of mobility, socioeconomic sphere, functional and operational analysis, spatial analysis, and supporting mix of analysis. So each category had their prescribed form. So students were asked to complete this analysis, also provide maps, graphs, and draw conclusion. But what was the most important for us is that this first semester resulted in 120-page, let's say, book or brochure that was provided to the city, to the municipality, that gained useful source of information and materials that they otherwise could not have obtained because of the lack of resources or time, and that can be used in further projects in this research area. And students also conducted a questionnaire that was prepared with cooperation with the city professionals and people that work in the field of citizen participation. And this questionnaire, there have been more than 1,000 participants in it, mostly from university, from the university staff and students, but also from the inhabitants of the area that was connected to this research area. So similar to the analysis project, the result of the conclusion of the questionnaire and the conclusions were provided to the municipality that gained like in-depth insight into not only the university staff, but also the people that visit this space and inhabitants of the surrounding areas. So this is like an illustration of this brochure that was provided to the city. And also the last thing that we asked the students to do was to also design some kind of pavilion that would be like let's say initial point in this whole area revitalization. So this was also rooted in the contract between the city and the university. We had the budget set for 4,000 euros, which provided like additional motivation for students to produce results that can be physically represented directly in the campus space. And these pavilions should have acted as objects that could raise awareness about larger revitalization of the area that will take place later. We wanted to realize this pavilion in form of workshops with some architects that have great expertise in such small architecture realizations, but unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 conditions, we could not realize this pavilion. So we hope we will realize it next year, hopefully. And also, these are some visualization about these pavilions, how they should have looked. So unfortunately, we couldn't do more stuff from this project because of the COVID-19 situation, but hopefully next year we'll be able to finish them.
Thank you very much. And right now we would like to summarize all of this. We distilled something like 4 key lessons that can be learned from this experience, not only this year, but from the past 5 years of since our institute and ourselves are involved. First of all, there is this cooperation between municipalities and universities, which can be actually beneficial for both sides. If we simplify it, we can say that municipality for relatively small amount of money can gain quite a lot of good analysis, good contacts with not only universities, but also with the representatives of other cities, in case cities of Brno and Bratislava. Secondly, what was good is that last year we had, 2 years ago we had a municipal election, and one of the outcomes was that there will be more systematic cooperation between Muni's competition and the city, so that they will prepare the priorities for the public spaces and for the city development. And based on this, the assignment for the municipality, so for the Muni's competition, will be proposed, the topics. So this way, these Munis can be used as a laboratory or as a testing ground for generation of ideas and discussions. Thirdly, multidisciplinary approach to the competition would enrich the final results. As we said, so far from Bratislava side, there were mostly spatial planners, architects, and people from fine arts. We would like in the next years also include other professions, so that we would get a broader range of inputs. And lastly, it is often said that the students are disinterested, are quite ignorant about the space around, but our experience is that if you motivate them enough, and this is not only about the money, but this is about the chance to be involved in these projects and perhaps have something implemented from your ideas, this is clearly noticeable that this is something that can motivate students to take part. So we are at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. And please, if you have any questions, we are right now ready to comply to them.
Great. Thank you, Milan and Michal. So do we have any questions in the app chat? We don't have them so far. If other session participants, if you have questions, you are free to ask them now. I will just maybe raise your hand so that I see it. If not, so I would have a question which is not connected to this to the program itself, but what you said about the brownfield development. So this seems to be an important issue in your. So can you say what? So what are the current challenges there, or how you are involved in these things?
Yes. So as the brownfield topic was chosen for the city of Brno, we have prepared for them one field trip. So for example, in Bratislava, there are no that many brownfields left, as it was also it was destroyed and rebuilt from the ground up. But there was one interesting example, that this brownfield of technical school that was closed for many years was reused and transformed thanks to the creative industry. So many architects and designers, photographers, and so on were asked for a small amount of money to occupy this space and revitalize it. And as they moved in and as they do all these let's say lectures and exhibitions and so on, so that injected life into this area, and this project is going for more than 5 years, I guess, and it's like a great example how you can use this creative capital of creative people to like foster the transformation of such area.
Yes, sure. Yes.
I have a question, which is probably the question to all of us, because you mentioned that you regretfully could not go to the end of the project due to COVID-19, which is fully understandable. But do you feel that you have to rethink now the project, the approach, having in mind the new situation, which is not very clearly coming to an end or transforming everything around us?
This is a very good question. I can say that the absolutely immediate impact was that the city municipality a couple of months ago asked us to meet, and they told us that unfortunately they cannot fund us for the future. So next year, when 2021, most likely we will not get any support from the city. However, we are trying to still implement this project, not with the city of Bratislava, but with other municipalities with whom, as an institution, we are working on other projects. And as for how to rethink this, well, I would say that the biggest lesson is that you can move a lot of activities into online space, and we can see it on, also from teaching and everything, but it can never fully replace the actual physical confrontation. And we can see this, for example, at the assessment of the project, which took place around May and June 2020. This was done fully online because of the pandemics, and it took a lot of time, and everyone like put their inputs. But simply, this is you can never really replace the exchange of ideas, you know, the creative differences, and this type of discussions.
Yes, that is true. Okay.
Yeah, if I could comment, yes. Just comment your answer, because it is something that we're facing here as well, and it is within research projects, within education. And in a way, probably we have to find a new mode of being useful, because in this contact with municipalities, we need to find a point where they will be well motivated to pay again, and they will pay again if we could prove we are useful to a process which is really difficult for everybody at the moment. And I don't know, we have to think probably from the theoretical side, and then try to come to root this into real life situations. I don't know.
Okay. Let us continue. Irena, in principle, you can just continue with your presentation. If you can share your
Okay, I will try to share the screen, and I hope it's going to be easy enough. Just please tell me when you see it. Do you see it now already?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay, let me see.
The best is you click on share.
Yes, I clicked on share.
Okay. And maybe beforehand you open your slides in the PowerPoint.
Slides, but it goes. Okay, now. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, sorry.
Perfect.
I didn't see it. Yeah. So now you see it. I hope.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to speak about regional typologies as regional typology as a factor in the energy transition in Europe. Actually, I'm going to present you a piece of a study which has been undertaken by a small team of our university. We have been working together within a big project under Horizon 2020, and we were the only urban planners and architects in this team. So first, probably, I should mention why dealing with the social and spatial aspects of energy transition. And our inspiration for this, before this project, was to be found in this document on so-called Energy Roadmap 2050, mentioning that there is an important social dimension in the energy system, which requires encouraging social dialogue. And it is not only the energy system, but society as a whole that needs to be dramatically more energy efficient. There was also a sentence there, mentioned there, about the need to answer questions on to what extent urban and spatial planning could contribute to saving energy in the medium and in the long term. So it is not a new problem, it is something which has been identified years ago, and there is a lot of work done in this field. Actually, the project that we joined, the so-called eHouse project, was stimulated by, and this is the consortium, I'm not going to speak about it, but it is about energy choices supporting the energy union and the SET plan. The SET plan is the strategic energy transition plan of the European Union. So there was a challenge estimated already of operationalizing this plan, doing things in real life so that the plan works. And actually, the aim of the research aim of this project was to identify and study the factors influencing energy-related individual and collective decision-making and behavior, and then to provide some recommendations to the policy field, to governance institutions. And the project was focusing on 3 levels, starting from in parallel regarding the micro level of individual decision-making and behavioral modes, the meso level where people live in communities, smaller or bigger, and then the macro level of formal decision-making at the municipal, regional, national level. And it was, the idea was to bring together researchers from many different fields. Psychologists and sociologists were the leading partners, and then people from the fields of economics, management, architecture, and urban planning, and also stakeholders, business organizations, energy producers as energy consumers, and municipal energy networks from different countries. So it was a research approach which was meant to be inter and transdisciplinary. And it was dealing with a field which was broad enough, so there was a need for putting some key research foci, and they were chosen before we joined, actually. And they were energy efficiency in buildings, e-mobility, and smart technologies. So this was on the right-hand side, you could see the geographical location of the countries involved, and I should say that issues of regional and urban typology and spatial planning were not explicitly included there. They were not meant in the project proposal just because there was the need for this focusing, and there was no urban planner in the initial consortium before we joined. Anyway, the project is already finalized, and what we did at the end of the project, by the end of the project, was to realize that interpreting the results have provided arguments to support the claim for needed further EU research in linking energy transition policy to the diversity of regional typologies and spatial planning systems, but also to lifestyles and cultures throughout Europe. So what I'm going to show you, to share with you, is a small study based on the results of this European-wide survey on energy-related personal behavioral choices carried out in 2018. It was within the project, the ECHOS project, and it covered the whole of Europe, was Switzerland and Norway, well, the whole of the European Union was Switzerland and Norway and Turkey. And also, so that was large scale enough, but it meant a rather limited number of respondents from each country. We have focused, you could see the database, it is public and it is accessible, all the questions and answers. And then we combine this by using publicly accessible geospatial data on regional typologies related to a possibility to differentiate urban and rural, among others, and to the characteristics of active planning and governance systems, national planning and governance systems in different countries. Actually, we focused on the 8 countries that were involved in ECHOS project. And then we try to outline similarities and differences which link the energy-related features of the built environment, housing in particular, as it was in the focus of the project, inhabitants' lifestyles and energy consumption patterns, and the perception, people's perception about the importance of energy efficiency in everyday life. It was all about realizing, trying to understand how and why people are motivated to act, not only to understand, not only to be in favor of this policy and this activity, but also to be motivated and capable of acting personally in real life. So the first thing we did was to spatially localize the results of the international survey, the responses, and that was done by geocoding based on postal codes and verification, and then to try to find out the regional typology that would be most meaningful in our case. So the attributes for belonging to cities, non-cities, as they have been already accepted, to functional urban areas, to metropolitan regions, and to the UNET's 3 units. The comparative analysis focused on national spatial planning styles as analyzed as studied in other European studies, the role of spatial planning in the energy policy implementation, and the national governance effectiveness as estimated by the previous research in these 8 countries represented in the ECHOS project. What we did then was relating factors and variables to locations in order to see what would be the possible links between different characteristics, the physical dimensions and the personal perceptions as attitudes, as I already mentioned. So I'm not going into the details of everything because I need to be brief, but that are the factors and the characteristics followed. You could see here that we have linked some of the. We have not been studying the climate ourselves. We based the analysis on existing results, and then we have divided the settlements into city and non-city based on Eurostat definition. And then we analyzed the physical dimensions, building type, indoor living space, type of heat, and implementation of energy efficiency measures. And then again, linking this to some of the personal perceptions and attitudes, a personal commitment to energy efficiency, self-confidence, pro-environmental activity. These are the questions, the number of questions from the database. So here is the geographical context, the climate typology based on data from up to 1976 to 2000, and we could just expectedly realize that it is about quite a variety of climatic geographical context. And then here are the settlement networks in the 8 e-host countries. And again, we realize it is quite a variety, quite a variety in density, typology of settlements, and the geocoding of the survey responses visualized in this way confirms that yes, all the countries have been covered by these answers, by the responses. We have then put this distribution by countries in a way to see how if they influence, if the settlement types are an influencing factors of energy-related decision making. Relatively limited number of nationally representative samples. I already mentioned it is about. It is exactly 600 in each of the countries. So there was no aim to get some representation. It was not initially intended. It was just to provide a general panoramic picture of the processes all over Europe. And then the city non-city classification we have chosen was considered the most suitable definition according to existing definitions, other definitions considered. Although the question in the survey was about living in cities smaller than 10,000 inhabitants or bigger than that. That was the only question which was allowed in the survey because it was quite long and comprehensive. So we decided to keep to the other classification, as SPA classification, and speak about less and more than 50,000 inhabitants. So I'm not going to discuss the distribution by countries. It is just showing the pictures in different countries. We have tried here, as you see, to distinguish also by metropolitan boundaries, functional urban areas, and so on and so on. And the circles are the locations of the respondents in each one of the countries. It is an issue of a very diverse, very colorful picture, and we see how the settlement networks vary a lot throughout Europe, and it is because of geographic, historic, and so on reasons that are surely complex enough and quite intriguing to study by themselves. So I want to share some of the survey results, and you could see here we have linked settlement types to building types. Again, it is expected to see that most of the people, and it is non-city and city situation. It is these are all expected results. We have outlined some national peculiarities in some of the countries. In Austria and Norway, for example, more than 1/4 of the people live in single-family houses. Then in Spain and in Spain, it is more than 35% living in flats in other types of buildings. And again, looking at the indoor living space, we could see some correlations that are rather expected regarding the square meters, settlement types, and heating fuel type. Again, there is a variety of fuels, of energy sources, and it is all the same. In Europe, the most, remove this from here. Yes, gas is still most broadly used. What is interesting here, I'm not going to tell you the details, but what is interesting here is the last couple of columns, and it is about the question, do you know on what heating fuel type your dwelling relies? And then you could see that people in cities are much more ignorant about this than people who live in rural areas. And that is surely an explanation about it, because obviously people in non-cities are very much personally involved in the decision-making, in deciding what to do for themselves, while in cities it is much, or probably or less, something which is decided more in a more centralized manner. Settlement type and energy efficiency measures per household. energy efficiency measures applied and not applied. The applied is here, and the other one is not applied. So you could see there is a lot of work to be done still from now on. And we could see that in non-cities, a higher percentage of energy efficiency measures have been already undertaken. So this prejudice that the rural areas have to be catching up with cities is quite to be questioned. Then again, settlement type and related to energy efficiency measures applied and not non-applied, going through this. And then probably, which is interesting, an attempt to relate action, pro-environmental action, with understanding about the importance of caring for the environment. It became clear that actually action in this field is not related necessarily to attitudes and perceptions. So we would need to go a bit deeper. So we could see what is good here in this first part of the question about acting pro-environmentally and the importance in the individual perception, self-identification. There is a good news here, and it is about the fact that it is the same percent of people agreeing that this is important part of their identity in cities and non-cities, and it is 40%. Yes, probably in cities there are more people who strongly agree, and it could be also based on different reasons. But then when going about linking this pro-environmental action to self-identification, we realized that there is no direct link, there is no such an influence, direct influence. So people do energy efficiency measures because they believe, no matter if they believe or not, we need to understand, to understand the complexity of motivations and reasons for undertaking energy efficiency. The second part of the analysis, it is linked to this comparative analysis of characteristics of the spatial planning systems and the governance systems. And this is based, as I mentioned, on this European research. So a classification of the spatial planning styles related to these 8 countries, again, identifies quite a big variety of styles, planning styles. And we could discuss here a lot of linkages. It is a traditional, probably to a large extent, a traditional situation. 4 main models have been identified, as we all know: regional economic comprehensive integrated model, land use planning model, and the traditional urbanism-based model. And we could see that we could trace some general tendencies and some dynamics of changes in these spatial planning styles in time. This was related then to a comparative analysis of the role of spatial planning in energy policies at the national level, as estimated by ESPON Research and Compass Project. And it is about the national level, how far energy policies and spatial planning are integrated at the national level. So again, different types of situations: integrated, informed, neglected, not relevant, or no information about how this is working. It might have been good news for Bulgaria, for example, because it comes to this integrated approach, integrated model, but it is not quite the situation, because when we go to the last third point of this analysis, to government effectiveness, based on world governance indicators provided by the World Bank research in 2017, we could see that it is about, again, about government effectiveness, and the indicators here show quite a difference related to different situations in Europe. I'm going to conclude, not to go too far in time. From what we have been doing, we claim that further and more detailed studies are needed to support the implementation of relevant and effective EU policy for energy transition, with an explicit focus on regional typology, settlement morphology, and their influence on inhabitants' lifestyle, personal attitude to energy consumption, and practical choices made. There is a need to better understand the diversity of paths to energy transitions in Europe, in urban and rural situations, but also in transitional ones, which is really important, in order to define required and possible energy-related changes in spatial planning and the design of built environment responding to and influencing lifestyles and behavioral modes. These are the references. And thank you for your attention. I do hope I kept the time, and any questions are most welcome. Now,
thank you. So again, if there are any questions from the panel participants here, just give me a sign. Yes, Daniel.
Yes, I have a question. Yes, I find that that's a really interesting approach with the regional topologies. And you mentioned the different spatial planning styles. And in Austria, we have a comprehensive integrative model, as I could see, and I want to ask, what does it mean exactly?
I'm afraid I would have expected such questions, but it has not been the point of our research. So it is something that we took from published research at the European level. And it means that integrating spatial with socioeconomic aspects of development is well represented in your national planning system. And I believe that, yes, as far as I know the system, that's what it means. But there are other countries where the planning process is mostly based on land use planning, so preferably based on land use planning, or in the southern part of Europe, the tradition goes mostly to this more urbanism-based planning, which first starts from the spatial design of things. So yeah, it is a long, and it still needs a lot of next research, because in many ways all these systems are very dynamic. There is a lot of change in Eastern Europe, in our countries, where the planning system is changing a lot, influenced by tendencies in the European Union and by the demand for responding to a changing society as well, and societal interactions. So this is a very important point, but a bit difficult here to provide a lot of arguments.
Okay. Daniel, okay, was this answer? Oh, so I had another question. If I understand it correctly, you only distinguished between city and non-city. So you don't have, let's say, further distinguishing between like suburban and more rural areas.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask if you think it's important, because I think for energy transition, now that we have like quite a movement from the cities to suburban areas, for example, that it could be of importance to understand what is the energy behavior really in this areas surrounding the main cities.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It is top important because we still have in view some traditional ideas about the rural, and it is not the traditional rural anymore around the metropolitan cities. Regretfully, that was the technical possibility because it was just the geocoding and it was not very precise. So that's what we had, and it was an effort to show that there is an influence of where people live on the way in which they behave and the way in which their perceptions are formed. And it needs a lot of funding for sure and a lot of research effort. And I believe that this should be done because otherwise we just lose this very important peculiarity of how things happen. And as I mentioned, there are some prejudices we have about things, about how they develop, about education. Education was mentioned several times this morning and yesterday as well. And we usually think about educating students and we think about educating experts. It is about educating everybody, of thinking in a new way of this urban-rural integration and interaction. And it needs a lot of support because this interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research takes a lot of effort. It's very important, but not so easy to organize.
Yes, very true. Okay, let us continue. So I will say the next presentation is by Daniel. Thanks a lot, Elena, for your presentation. It's a very interesting project indeed. Daniel, the floor is yours. Will you turn on your mic?
Yeah. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Yes, yes. Thanks for your introduction. Yes, it's a pleasure for me to be here at the URP2020 conference. My name is Daniel Youssef and I am project assistant at the Vienna University of Technology Institute of Spatial Planning. And yes, today I will present you a part of an ongoing transdisciplinary research project in the region Rümeland-Carnuntum in Lower Austria. This consortium includes the BOKU Vienna, that's the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences, the Regional Development Association in the region, and the Institute of Spatial Planning. Especially, I will tell you something about Work Package 3, so-called spatial development, under the direction of Professor Dillinger and my colleague, Dr. Dumke. Yes, as a regional lab, we initiated the so-called regional forge, that's freely translated from German, as a process for the establishment of a regional and design advisory board for the implementation of projects with regional relevance. I start with a short introduction to the region, then I'll give you an input about the context. There are the building cultural guidelines of the federal government of Austria. On this basis, the LINA project was developed to transfer these principles for a regional building and planning culture. Then I will give an overview about the methodology, the objectives, and the process of the regional forge, followed by an outlook and a short summary. Well, planning and building culture takes place in the region, Rümeland-Carnuntum, which recognizes building cultural guidelines as opportunity for integrative development. This makes the region a pioneer of planning culture. Rümeland is located in the metropolitan region between Vienna and Bratislava, including 30 municipalities, which are members of the Regional Development Association. The area is about 613 square kilometers and the region has more than 90,000 inhabitants. Römerland is a typical immigration region with a high population growth. So it's attractive for the economy and offers at the same time a high quality of life. The municipalities in the region want to pay special attention to the essential and not reproducible source of land for future-proof development. This is why the LENA project was developed together with the region. And now we try to implement the findings on this in this ongoing project, Römerland Canuntum 2040. Yeah, in Austria, the building cultural guidelines were published in 2017 as a voluntary commitment of the federal government in the public interest and the basis for a partnership approach by all groups of actors. There are 6 fields of action concerning local, urban, and landscape development, building, renewing, and operating, processes and procedures, awareness raising and participation, science and competence transfer, and governance, coordination, as well as cooperation. One of the 20 guidelines is to implement and strengthen planning and design advisory boards. This can also promote the other principles of a high-quality building and planning culture, like strengthen city centers, apply and further develop the principles of sustainability, or to carefully cultivate the architectural cultural heritage and develop it further in a contemporary way. Yeah, a little mind game. What's the definition of good building and planning culture? Yeah, as you can see, it's very simple. Just enter the parameters of your region into the formula, and you have the result of the planning cultural quality. Okay, when it would be easy like that, maybe an artificial intelligence could make spatial planning. Or maybe the application would start burning if it had to think about how to promote sustainable development, taking into account the different interests of stakeholders and concerns of the population in the region. Nevertheless, it can be established that good building culture is sustainable, it's beautiful, it creates buildings and open spaces with the involvement of users and other affected persons who can contribute their knowledge and their interests in transparent processes. It's gender fair. It creates identity. It's appropriate. It's sparing with resources. It treats the landscape and the soul, existing buildings, energy and raw materials with moderation. Is high quality and is adaptable. In the previous project, LENA, Shaping and Planning Our Living Space Sustainable Together, the principles of the regional planning culture and sustainable habitat design were developed for the Römerland. There was an intensive discussion process with local stakeholders and external experts. They developed 4 elements and 9 principles for planning and building culture, published in LENA's toolbox. Furthermore, the Pactum of Römerland for Sustainable Development was established and signed by the majors of the municipalities. So, the 4 elements are preserve and carefully develop settlement and landscape areas, establishing regionally typical building and living, improve communication, and promote mindfulness, awareness, and knowledge of topics related to building culture. Here, an overview also about the 38 different tools formulated. You can see the scope of the toolbox, but I don't go into detail here. Yeah, in the Pactum Römerland Canuntum, the signatory communities of the region commit themselves to the Pactum and formulate. We want to promote the quality of life for ourselves and our descendants by carefully planning and carrying out all construction activities. Furthermore, We want to create better framework conditions for future-oriented building and cooperate regionally. So, a regional planning and design advisory board is to be set up in Römerland-Kanunto, offering competent advice on quality criteria for settlement development and construction projects in the region. The regional forge. In the regional forge, the basics for the establishment of the advisory board are being created. The advisory board is intended to ensure and maintain the quality of planning and projects in the long term, taking into account local characteristics. And the advisory board establishes guidelines and criteria for its decision-making, evaluates planning projects, and provides recommendations to municipalities. Here you can see the organization chart of the transdisciplinary research project, the relevant modules, and the position of the regional forge in the overall project. Here is an overview of the methodology, which illustrates the complexity of the initiative. There are 4 modules. Starting point is a good practice research on existing advisory boards with similar functions, whereby the regional relevance, which we emphasize, is a novelty. Since currently existing advisory boards in Austria advise more on design tasks at the object level. We also do a real laboratory in combination with the participation method of systemic consensus. In this way, we link various knowledge bases on the one hand, and on the other hand, we can create a basis for decision-making based on a broad acceptance in the region. The basic steps of this ongoing module called action research are planning, acting, observing, and reflecting. So action research can be defined as a form of experimental research that addresses the challenges of a group, community, or organization in a participatory, iterative, empirical, and reflexive way. Based on these findings, a pilot project test run will be conducted with selected experts from the relevant disciplines. But more on this later. Well, the objectives of this work package 3 to create the basis for the establishment of a planning and building advisory board for implementation of the principles of regional planning and building culture defined in the LINE project, to intensify the intermunicipal cooperation for quality improvement for planning and projects with regional relevance. This can lead to a sustainable and resource-saving spatial development with perspectives beyond administrative boundaries. Yeah, here you can see a qualitative definition of regional relevance. So regionally relevant is basically everything that clearly goes beyond the effect for a single municipality. It could be positive or negative. It can be, for example, larger additional business or industrial area, mobilization of energy potential areas, larger social infrastructure facilities, new settlement areas, both on greenfield sites as well as intensification, and intermunicipal strategies or concepts. Overall, you can say all resource-intensive projects. Now the development of a detailed criteria catalog is in progress. It includes qualitative as well as quantitative criteria. Here you can see the participation process, which took place online. Yeah, you know the reasons why. It consists of 3 workshops. The first workshop dealt with the question what. We discussed and documented the services, planning levels, and planning topics to be considered. Then the who was on the agenda. We assessed framework conditions, relevant disciplines to involve, and possible financing options to arrive at an initial formulation of objectives. In the third and last workshop, the how was discussed, with the intention of consenting the workflow and do a name dropping of renowned experts. They should bring along an appropriate knowledge of the region whereby possible bias must be excluded. So here you can see an excerpt of the workshop results and what the results of this online workshop look like. After discussion, we evaluated the statements in order to achieve the greatest possible consensus. A ranking was then created. On this basis, the results were concretized in order to get a practice readiness level of this prototype. So, what will be evaluated by the advisory board? Projects of regional relevance, for example, major residential construction, tourism and agriculture projects, development strategies, buildings in the public interest, for example, social infrastructure. Who is included? Experts from the disciplines, spatial planning, architecture, mobility, landscape planning, climate and energy research, civil engineering, monument conservation, respectively cultural heritage, economy, and social affairs. A balanced and gender-appropriate constitution is required. And how should it be done? Municipalities send planning activities to the Regional Development Association. Then a preliminary examination will be carried out to assess the regional relevance. In the examination case, experts make recommendations to the region and municipalities based on audit criteria to improve the quality in spatial planning in context of sustainable development. Yes, here you can see the elaborated workflow in detail. This will be tested in the further process and will be adapted or refined via iterative feedback loops in coordination with the experts involved. I will not go into further detail here. So now we develop a criteria catalog for checking the relevance and for project evaluation. A list of experts will be generated as well as a proposal for the test run. We choose a residential development project with about 60 residential units, which is in the preliminary phase of project development. Based on these findings of the findings of this pilot project, we will provide the region with suggestions for the establishment of a planning and advisory board to promote high quality, sustainable spatial development and a good building culture. In the final report, we will also discuss the options of regional transferability of such an advisory board. Yeah, here we have the summary. The advisory board is available to all 13 municipalities of the Regional Development Association. The regional relevance of project is assessed in advance. If the project is of regional relevance, the advisory board advises the municipalities concerned and makes recommendations for the municipal implementation without competing existing procedures. The advisory board initially assesses projects, but also strategies and concepts according to the criteria defined from the LINA project. The research team from Untitled 2040 will submit the draft criteria for the test run. The advisory board may develop further criteria in the future. So here you can see the references. Finally, we see building and planning culture as a continuous process. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, do we have questions from the group? I would have a question. Like when you explain this idea of the regional planning authority here for the region, I wonder, are there already some projects that are, let's say, that are in the pipeline that will come for sure, and that would really require this regional planning perspective? You know, that so. Kind of, is there a demand for this?
Yeah, there is a demand because we also did such information events for the majors of the municipalities, and they also are of the opinion that's a good idea for larger projects to have a basis from experts. And so the pilot project, which we start next year, it's a residential project with more than 60 residential units. And so when you have a larger settlement project, then the mobility structures in a region also are affected by this. And so the main goal is also to connect the municipalities to force the cooperation so that the areas will be sustainable developed and not the one community make this and the other this, and there is no coordination between them.
Okay, great. Further question? I don't see the signs, so thank you, Daniel. And we will go to the final presentation by Matej Jaššo.
Okay, so wait a minute. Can you see my presentation right now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, so I would like to talk about another of the so-called soft factors of the spatial and regional development, like the planning culture or building culture was. And this is a regional identity. And basically, I will speak about the same region, maybe in a little bit larger scale, which is a central region. So I would like to summarize our research effort during the last decade, or maybe something more. And first of all, I would like to present what is it, the central region. The Central region is one of the many cross-border regions in the Europe which share very deep and very common regional identity. Right now, I will not talk about the theoretical aspects of the concept of regional identity. I will recommend you the classic readings of the authors like Raxma or Pasi or some others. Basically, the regional identity is one of the crucial soft factors for the regional development because it is a set of unique spatial, cultural, social characteristic of any given region, which is sticking together the mental landscape and the mental images of the inhabitants and all of the other stakeholders. So, and Central region is one of those regions which are supposed to have very deep cross-border regional identity, going deep into the history and culture and so on. What is Central? It is an initiative, it is a project, it is a region, it is a brand, it is a vision. I would say it's all of them. It's not only region, but all of those five words. And the answer to this question is not easy. And the answer whether this initiative has been a success or has been a failure, it is also not easy, because in some aspects it was a very successful initiative, and also in some other aspects and dimension we did witness some failures or setbacks or disappointments. I will talk about those things later. So I will not bother you with all these political instruments and the political issues like several memoranda and conferences and so on. Basically, it is very well known here that the Centrop has been based in a small Austrian municipality of Kidze, which is directly near the Slovakian border, and is sticking together various territorial subjects from the four countries, Slovakia, Austria, Czech Republic, and Hungary. You can see on this map the initial map of the Centrop, where initially also the region of southern Bohemia was. They basically later withdrew from the project because the functional ties of the České Budějovice and the other cities of southern Bohemia are more related toward the Bavaria and Germany. So this is the first map, which is not actual anymore. Here you can see the current map. Here you have the actors from all four sides. They are basically the cities, the big cities like Vienna, Bratislava, Brno, Győr, Trnava, and so on, and basically various regional structures, because this structure is quite different in all four countries. In Austria, we have so-called Bundesländer. In Slovak Republic, we have regions, and in Czech Republic and the Hungary, it is a similar. So you can see all the actors which are active in the Centrop right now in the year 2020 are listed here on the left side. Here are some illustrative buildings, illustrative pictures from all the countries. You can easily see that the architectural style, the culture, the history, and also this Danubian landscape is very similar. And if I wouldn't tell you which is from Austria, which is from Czech Republic, which is from Slovakia, maybe you will have problems to say which picture belongs to which country. So there is clearly some common sense of common identity. This is a heart of Central Europe, heart of Middle Europa, and it's obvious from every picture, not only picture. Here we have the basic task. What was the main goal of the Centrop back into 2003? It was a kind of very ambitious project to build up some cooperation network, to develop a clear vision, to promote the common values, to mobilize the stakeholders, and of course to realize pilot projects and the marketing issues and everything. Not everything went smooth. There are some dimensions which were very successful, and there are some dimensions which were not so much successful. I will refer later about those things. From the documents, or I would label it a pure documents. It's for me it's something more than document. I would highlight the Vision Centrop 2015, which was elaborated in the first year of existence of the Centrop, 2004 till 2006, and it is a result of more than 2 years of work of many experts from various fields. And what is very important, it was meant as a kind of open interim document, which was fulfilled with new impulses, new additional elements of the vision, and so on. If we analyze this vision right now in 2020, so that means 15 years after the elaboration of the vision, you can see that many of the goals have been successfully fulfilled. The 6.5 million live in this somehow united region because there are no administrative borders, there are no restrictions in the labor market, and it was meant a kind of model region of integration of so-called old and new EU member countries, meant the Austria and the other three countries. it was also assumed or meant that this will generate a very strong regional identification, a very strong feeling of togetherness. In German, I would use the word Wir-Gefühl. This is the weaker side of the whole project, because this had not paid back in all essentiality, and it is rather weak side. What is a positive side is a kind of common congruence of the economic development, and of course of the spatial development, because for example, all region is aimed to do separate economical sectors, like for example automotive cluster. The whole region is very well interconnected with in the terms of research and development, the cooperation of the universities, the schools, the business, and everything else. The region is enjoying quite high quality of life compared to the other region, especially in Hungary and Slovak Republic, and is playing a certain role in the European scale. It was a good management model, combining and integrating the processes of cooperation and competition and independent acting of all actors. It could be assessed as a quite a success. These are some other positive things that the region have been influenced by the global setbacks, like was the economical crisis in 2009, like the migration crisis 2015, only in the moderate way, and proved to be able to cope with such huge challenges. Also, the demographic changes is another one of the big challenges. So these are all, I would say, the good points. On the other hand, we have to say that some expectations and some ambitions have not been fulfilled. We have analyzed the medial image, for example, of the Central region. You can see the title or headline from one article in the Swiss newspaper, Neue Zürcher Zeitung: Central is no more than cluster of region. And we have to admit that despite the quite heavy media coverage, especially in the first decade of the existence of the Centrop, the public remained rather unattached, and the feedback was rather rare and not so warm-hearted, not so intensive as it was supposed these 15 or 17 years ago. Another setback is that the decision processes are still not fully harmonized. It's obvious because the governance structures are different still in each of the four countries. If we compare the marketing issues, that means the things like the common corporate identity of the region, the common place branding of the region, we also see some deficiencies and some setbacks, which I will refer about later. So we have to say that the initial dynamics of the development region has somehow slowed down. I wouldn't say disappeared, but has somehow slowed down, and we're waiting for new impulses. Now I would like to refer more about the, let's say, the semiotics of the Centrum, about the identity, about the branding, and those things which are reflecting the process of building a common regional identity. The name Centrop was invented back in 2002 in the school children competition, and is basically sticking together both semantic characteristic of the region, Central and Europe, because this is really the heart of the Central Europe, and but we could see some very smooth process of the change of the public opinion in all four countries. That those situation in 20 years ago was more, let's say, Europe optimistic. Everything what had in the name something related to Europe was considered as a positive perspective, optimistic, and so on. And now the public opinion in all four countries is a little bit more critical toward the European Union, and the overall social climate and overall atmosphere has been changed. I would say I will use the German word Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist has been really changed during those 17 years. If we analyze a so-called central brand personality is a kind of metaphor, is a kind of simplification of the key issues, key characteristics, key traits of the metaphorical personality of the product. In our case, it is a region. So we have made a lot of interviews with various actors. The last research was conducted during the 2018 and 19. It was a set of interviews with the former politicians, the mayors, the decision makers in Austria, Slovakia, and Czech Republic. In Hungary, we didn't have the possibility to do that. So we outlined the shape of the brand personality, that Centrop is well-mannered and friendly, is manifold and versatile, but on the other hand is a little bit too scientific, academic, sophisticated, diffuse and vague and artificial. If you would ask the people on the streets, what do you associate with the Centrop, I would say that very few of them would be able to bring some clear contours of this brand personality. When we analyzed mostly the older outputs of the Centrop marketing campaign and the other outputs, we have easily see that the project was maybe a little bit too over ambitious. Because when you can read the lines from the 2006, that the formation of the Centrop is an attempt by Central Europe to stand up to the major economic regions and booming countries like India or China, it is easily maybe too overambitious, and clearly illustrates that this initiative was successful more in the outer layer than in the inner layer. That means the communication with the people, with the small and medium-sized enterprises, and so on. Our analysis went more in depth regarding the analyzing the several layers of brand of the Centrop. We used a very well-known methodology of so-called brand asset valuation, which was developed by advertising agency Young & Rabicam many years ago. And when we analyzed those basic four dimensions, that means differentiation, relevance, esteem, and knowledge, our verdict is that with regard of brand differentiation, this is an ability of the brand to be unique and distinctive and distinguished from all the others. The Centrop is rather moderate. The Centrop brand personality or unique selling proposition, this is a term from marketing, is well defined and communicated, but the brand is still rather young and inexperienced, because in terms of brand building, the 17 years, it's not a very big deal. We have brands which do have a century of successes behind them. The other very important dimensions is the brand relevance. That means whether this brand is important, whether it is relevant for the large consumer market segments, and our verdict is that it is a moderate to rather low. That means that Centrop is not perceived as a relevant brand to all the segment groups. It doesn't take into account only the broader public. I would say it missed its impact on the business landscape. Because you probably heard about the similar strategy, so-called the Twin City strategy, which is a clearly business-driven initiative from the Austrian and Slovak enterprises, and the business were more likely to be associated with this clearly defined Twin City strategy, which, on the other hand, doesn't have any space for all the other regional actors. That means the small municipalities like Hainburg or some small municipalities in Hungary or Czech Republic. The third layer is a brand esteem. That means the perceived quality, trustworthiness, and status of the brand. I would verdict this dimensions as a rather high, because Centrop is not cheap, Centrop is not fake, but is a little spontaneous and is little vital, little vivid. So it lacks the substance of everyday life. And the fourth one, brand knowledge. Our verdict is low, because brand knowledge means the contact with the brand in the everyday life. It cannot be replaced by the marketing, advertising, advertising activities, and so on. It must be transmitted in everyday activities, and this is one of the most weak or the weakest sides of the Centrop. In the second phase of my presentation, there are some substantial conclusions from our latest research, which was those interviews with the key stakeholders. We spoke with very renowned former politicians, former mayors from Austria. We have been speaking with the former mayor of Vienna, for example. So they were really high-ranked people who built up the Central region, basically. So here are some quotations from those interviews. You can see that looking back to Centrop, almost all of those interviewers have said that this is a fascinating attempt to merge or to join 4 adjacent regions in various national countries, and it has a lot of successes behind its acting. It was a kind of a very successful laboratory or lab of testing the mutual merger processes of old and the new EU member countries. Of course, it was not always going smooth. Of course, there were a lot of hindrances and so on. The expectations were quite high, and sometimes during those 70 years, those big expectations have not been met as it was supposed. The initiative should lead to integration within this space. It was done. To strengthen its competitiveness, it was done. The closer cooperation between the centers of this triangle, Vienna, Bratislava, Brno, and the other regional subjects. What is interesting regarding the changes of the 17 years? I told you that the first years, 2003, 4, 5, 6, those were the years of a lot of optimism. At least in Slovakia, but I'm sure that the situation was very similar in other 3 countries, because these 3 countries were accessing the European Union. There were big expectation and big optimism overall in the society, which was easily seen in many ambitious projects were realized within the Centrop and so on. For example,
can you please move towards conclusions?
Yes. Okay. So these are the things from the latest research. I will skip some slides because there are some more analyses about the successes and the setbacks. And here are the conclusions. I would say that the whole Centrop initiative was rather more successful in the outer dimension. That means the marketing, the image making, image keeping, and the communication with the foreign decision makers and the actors. I would say that Centrop brand is still too young, inexperienced, academic, and not lived in everyday life. I would say that some marketing tools like corporate identity of the Centrop and the branding was used a little bit superficially without substantial depth. And I would say that right now we are going back to the level of very concrete bilateral small projects, and we should respect the last sentence. The brand building through acting is much more strong than brand building by huge statements. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you. It was indeed a very good finishing statement on this. I see myself on your screen somehow. Okay, so everybody, we will have a second part of this session, which will start 11:15. Now it is a break. If you want, basically, you can stay in this room, I think, and further people will then just join us. Further presenters will join us later. Thank you to everybody. Do we have questions to Matej? No, we don't have questions. So thank you again. and hope to see you after the break. And we'll continue with 4 more presentations in this conference.
Okay, 11:15.
Yes, Elena, yes.
I just want to say thank you, Matej, for this very comprehensive analysis of experience, because I think it is for all of us important to have this long-term view back on what we have been doing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So 11:15, we are continuing, okay?
Yes.